Hello, this is Max Drake. I just want to talk to you about moving on with APIs as to where I got. On this one here, I got to the point where I was using the global COVID AVI data and I was pulling it in and I wanted to make it a little bit more dynamic. So I suddenly thought, okay, then I got a little bit of hang of how the API is working. Now I actually want to try and reproduce my website through here. So the first thing that I want to do is actually get that information through to the map. So I thought, this will be a bit of messing around with some of the things that I was doing. So the first thing I looked at was actually getting an API myself to actually go and call. So I started to look at web scraping in the browsers to see that I could actually go and update that information. So I found this chap here's, now it wasn't that easy. A lot of it you can't just do it in straight vanilla JavaScript, you've got to do it in other things as well. But I came across this particular gentleman who's done some web scraping using the Chrome console to actually, and he wrote a bit of JavaScript and he just cuts and pastes it, goes to a website and it pulls off the information on that. So I thought, that'd be good. I'll go and get to the Ministry of Health site and do that. But what it pulls in is it goes and finds the tags of a specific area, like the tag through for this particular area, and what it pulls in is text. So it pulls in the inner HTML or the inner text. So there might be a number in there, and this is what I was doing. I was going into tables, and what it was pulling out was actually the number in the string format. So I then had to go through and start going through another iteration to try and clean that from being a string to now being a number. And I thought, well, I can spend my time doing that, or I can actually focus on getting I can focus on working with getting information onto a web page, which is what I was trying to do, and then I could make and then having a bit of a dynamic map. So I sort of left that alone, and on my search through, I came across this gentleman here, Dixon Cheng, who's been building this website here, and it is a fantastic website. It does all of the things that I was thinking that would be really helpful on a map. Like this one goes through all the regions and actually just says, and it's got the daily cases of which ones are active and which ones are, who's recovered and how many new cases are coming through. And it's got the overall summary, it's got those ones, it's also got the age groups of coming through. A lot of real intelligence in this, and if you go into some of these, it goes through each of the individual persons. So absolutely beautiful, and I think he's writing this with React, but he had a whole load of endpoints. Now, when I initially looked at his information through there, he actually had his information on the GitHub. And when I went through the GitHub, what I actually learned was if you found a JSON file through here, now I'm just using this as another information because Jason's now moved a lot of his stuff off there. So if you click on a JSON file within the GitHub, it shows you the JSON data there. But if you hit on raw, now look at this. This is the link to the that file. So it's https GitHub blah. If you hit the raw, it adds raw in the middle there, and it's got just the JSON data. So you can now use that as an endpoint to actually go and grab that information. So I thought, that's fantastic. So anyway, I asked Jason if I could use his data, and he said, yep, more than welcome to. He's since moved it off there, and he's moved it onto his website through here, and he's generating that. So he's actually scraping the latest stuff from the member things, and I think he's using React or something like that to do it. Because I want to just stay a pure Java, because I'm playing with Java at the moment, I didn't want to go, I know you can use something like Python, Beautiful Sloop, but I didn't want to start using lots of coding. Just want to stick with JavaScript for doing this one at the moment. So that was one process that I could do. I could have done it and actually started to build up my own one through here, but then I had to do that. So in the end, I suddenly thought, well, no, my focus is actually just doing my map at this point in time. So that's a learning that I don't want to do. I don't want to learn about all the messing around of all of this. So I went on to build the map. So anyway, I started to build the map, and I went back into this template literal part of the thing through here, and I got bogged down massively. What I ended up doing was I ended up writing a whole lot of JavaScript functions to actually go and read the information that I was getting from the fetch And then after I was doing that, I was trying to return something to actually put into the template literal, and it wasn't working at all. And I was getting so frustrated with that. And it was only later when I actually came back, and today I actually just saw just how stupid I was. I went back and looked at the template literal example. Now here's template literal. He's got a few functions in here which are doing little things. This is the array of the data through here. Now, within here, this template literal, which is calling that to actually create the web page, can easily reach. All of these functions are sitting here doing something, and they're returning something through. So they're returning something through. And it's only here where he's using the template literal. He's using this data. So he can reach that array, and he's doing something through here. Now, when he's got other things going on, he's getting these returned by this pen template through here. So he's actually getting, but first of all, he can get to the data. So he's getting to that data, that array first of all. This is where I fell down. I was actually putting functions. Inside the functions, I was calling the JSON files. And inside those, I was getting the information through there, and then I was trying to feed it across to here. But I'd come out of the function, so that information wasn't available. So although I actually had constants and variables up the top here outside the functions, it wasn't actually allowing me to pass this stuff through into the template literal. Now, once I actually made a single function up the top, so let's just go back to here and up to the top here, and I made one function here, and I had all of these other iterations where I go through and do the fetching and bringing the response back in, and the template literal are all sitting within that same function, and then I call the function afterwards. It all works because this can now reach the data. It can reach the data first off. So now I've got that. So that was something that, as I said, a day and a half of pure frustration when nothing was actually happening. So I finally wrote a lot of code that is absolutely revolting, but it gets those things to actually work through, and it does it. It hasn't been checked. I've just got things that it actually iterates through, so it's doing the stuff. But what I actually found was the next part of the thing with the API was when I got to the API, and I've got my map through here, and this is the original map. Now, if I actually just go and fire that off, you'll see it takes about 2 seconds to load. And this one's calling the map. All the data is already embedded in here, so each day I had to rebuild this website just so that it's got the latest data. But it is pulling in a JavaScript module through here, a couple of scripts for this and for this map through here. Takes 2 seconds. When I actually try and pull in this information here, and I go and fire this one up, you'll see that it's taken about 3.5 seconds, and it still hasn't loaded the blooming map. So it's taken a long time to actually do that before all of this is actually happening. Now, I just want to point out this other one through here. Now, this is the same map, and I'm actually doing it on a local server. I'm going to disable the cache through there, and if I fire up through there, you'll see this is actually loading up in about half a second. So it's actually happening a lot more quickly. Now, one of the things with both of these two here, they're on my web server, which is over in Germany. So this is in Germany so it's going to do the call to Germany to go and get that file. That's then making a call to New Zealand to get these JSON files, that's then taking it back to Germany to redo the stuff through there, and then it's actually displaying the information. So it's a very slow route. Now this is why this one's faster, is that these are in New Zealand and I'm in New Zealand. So that's actually only taking half a second to do, whereas these other ones, it's taking over 3 seconds just to get the data, but even just actually displaying it is still taking quite a lot of time. So that's one of the things that it suddenly taught me, that although you're actually pulling the API and the API is giving you the latest stuff, if your code's not written well, it's going to be quite slow. So I'm suddenly thinking, well, a lot of other people's places aren't as slow as mine. But one of the things that I'm doing in mine is that if we just go through and actually look at a bit of that API coming through, this is the regional information. So there's something like 20 regions, and then each region has so many things in the array, from the oldest to the thing. So it's always updating. So this is for yesterday, this is for today, then there'll be an update tomorrow. It's also changing slightly. They're adding some new things that he's getting scraped from the website. So he's doing the scraping, he's updating that all the time there. And one of the things which I'm doing in mine, which is really shitty code, is that I'm going through and saying, go and work out and give me the last item in the array, because it's being updated daily. I can't just give it number 20 because tomorrow it might be number 21, so I might be giving out of date information here. So at each of these ones here, and if you look through the rest of these codes, I'm also doing it through here, there's a massive amount of redundant information where I'm going through, finding the length of that array, and then I'm repeating it something like most probably over 100 times, when in fact all I should be doing is using it once, finding that and making it a constant, and then just pulling that constant into here. So I'm doing some real rubbish coding, but because I just got so disrupted by the other thing, I found that I was doing some really dumb things. But at the end of the day, I've been able to get my map the same as the other one, and but I'm doing it. So although I'm using the API that gives me the freshest data, the information, it just pulls whatever's there. I don't have to rebuild every day. It just automatically. So once I've got that thing, I can just leave it and sit it, and it'll just do that, and it'll just call that. So as long as that information is updated, it will just go and pull the latest, all the things that it's actually coming through. So it's doing that. But what it's taught me as a lesson is that I've got some really crappy code. So that is the next thing that I've got to start doing. So I've sort of been breaking things rather than learning things. So I hope that's been of interest to you. Again, I'm using the network through here to actually show the speed. And it was the fact that it was so slow. And as I said, the other big learning thing I had was the fact that this the template literal must be able to access what is returned from the API call. If it can't access it, it can't display it in this way. You just have to give it a fixed number or something like that that's coming through. If you actually want to give it a functional thing to actually go through and process a bit of that JSON, you've got to let that JSON information, or that array that has been generated, be accessible such that it can be used. So I hope that's been of interest to you. Thank you very much for watching. If you found it useful, can you give it a thumbs up? This is more how not to do rather than how to do. Anyway, thank you.